Today is Thursday, August 15th. What to know about a key milestone in America's inflation rate and the presidential candidate's plans to improve the economy. Also, the damage done by what is now Hurricane Ernesto and where the storm is headed next. Plus, the government has a plan to make online reviews more reliable. A new AI tool lets people create some pretty wild images and post them online. And a famous street artist inspired a treasure hunt that may have a hidden message. Those stories and even more news next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. For the first time in more than 3 years, inflation has fallen below 3%. The Consumer Price Index, aka the CPI, rose 2.9% last month as compared to a year ago. Granted, that's still higher than the Federal Reserve's 2% target, but it's much lower than inflation was at its peak at 9.1%. A lot of the recent slowdown can be traced back to food prices. There was also improvement in other categories like cars, clothes, airfare, and medical care. But housing costs are still a sticking point, accounting for nearly 90% of the gain in overall inflation. The housing market could get a bit of relief, though, when the Federal Reserve starts cutting interest rates. And it's widely believed this latest inflation data is enough reason for the Fed to start doing so at its meeting next month. Some analysts even say the debate won't be over whether to cut rates, but by how much. So, to be continued. Former President Donald Trump is focused on the economy this week as he pitches himself to voters. During a North Carolina speech yesterday, Trump promised to, quote, make America affordable again. And he promised an economic boom if he wins a second term in office. As far as specifics go, Trump said on his first day in office he would sign an executive order directing all agency heads to work toward limiting inflation. And he promised to impose 10 to 20% tariffs on imported goods as a way to try to punish other countries and protect American industries. But Vice President Kamala Harris has her own economic plan in the works. She's unveiling a new policy framework tomorrow, also in North Carolina. So more details to come, but campaign sources have told news outlets it will make housing more affordable, take on corporate excess, and boost small businesses. By the way, a new Google report backed up what former President Trump has been saying this week about a hacking group linked to Iran targeting the presidential campaigns. Not only that, but the tech giant says the hacking operation is actually still happening and is more wide-ranging than previously known. In most cases, the efforts have not been successful. But Google did say hackers were able to break into the personal Gmail account of a high-profile political consultant. The company has passed on information to law enforcement and says it's still cooperating with investigations. The head of another Ivy League university has decided to step down over campus protests. This time it was Columbia University's president. You'll remember the New York City campus was the scene of several chaotic and sometimes violent protests over the Israel-Hamas war. By the end of the school year, Columbia ended up having to move its classes online and cancel its main graduation ceremony. The dean of Columbia's medical school is now taking over as the university's interim president. In a statement, she said, quote, Columbia University has a long history of meeting the moment, and I have faith that we will do so once again. Of course, Columbia is just the latest university to go through a leadership change. The presidents of Harvard and the University of Pennsylvania resigned over the winter. The president of Cornell stepped down in May, and the president of Yale also retired this year. For weeks now, riots have been erupting across Britain, and now more than 1,000 people have been arrested. The riots started in the aftermath of a stabbing attack we told you about last month that killed 3 children. Online posts wrongly identified the suspect as an asylum seeker who crossed the English Channel illegally, when in reality he was born in Britain. Still, those posts sparked outrage. Anti-immigration protesters stormed a hotel housing asylum seekers. Demonstrators have also marched through the streets chanting, "We want our country back." And in many instances, police officers have been attacked, shops have been looted, and mosques have been vandalized. The new UK Prime Minister has condemned this violence as far-right thuggery, and the government said last week that hundreds of extra places are being opened in Britain's overcrowded prisons to make room for rioters. Lawmakers are apparently considering strengthening internet safety laws, too, to make them tougher on disinformation, hate speech, and incitement of violence. Hurricane Ernesto is now growing stronger, threatening to hit Bermuda as a major storm. Already, Ernesto dropped torrential rain on Puerto Rico and knocked out power for nearly half of the U.S. territory yesterday. Heavy flooding was also reported, not only in Puerto Rico, but also in the Virgin Islands. Some people had to evacuate, schools and roads were closed, and flights were canceled. The latest forecast has the storm impacting Bermuda on Saturday, and it could bring extremely large waves up and down the East Coast here in the U.S. The National Hurricane Center is warning anyone who plans to go to the beach this weekend to be careful that even if the weather is beautiful, rip currents could be dangerous. All right, we have more news for you still ahead. But first, a quick thanks to our sponsor, ZocDoc. You know the game Mad Libs? Sometimes finding a doctor is kind of like a bad game of Mad Libs. You need a blank specialist who takes blank insurance, who is within blank miles of you, who spends more than blank minutes with you in the exam room, et cetera, et cetera. Well, ZocDoc makes it a bit easier for you to fill in those blanks to help you find the right doctor for your specific needs. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality, in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, eye care to skincare, and much more. It's one of the tools I use when looking for a new doctor. Plus, ZocDoc appointments happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. Now back to the news. Researchers studying people in comas and vegetative states say many of them know what's happening around them. Specifically, they say up to a quarter of them may have awareness and the ability to think, despite the fact that they're unresponsive or unable to communicate. Doctors asked hundreds of unresponsive patients to imagine themselves doing activities like playing sports. Then they asked them to stop, then start again. When researchers looked at the brainwaves of these patients, they resembled those of healthy people imagining the same activities. That suggests there's something going on in the patient's brains, they just can't communicate what it is. So what do these findings mean? For starters, researchers say testing of minimally conscious people should be more comprehensive and ongoing. It also gives doctors hope that in the future, patients who still have brain activity could learn to use a brain implant or other device to help them communicate. For now, even knowing some of these patients could have awareness may change how doctors and family members decide to treat them. The Federal Trade Commission has officially banned fake reviews, meaning any reviews written by people who weren't really customers, company insiders, or artificial intelligence. It also bans using intimidation tactics to remove negative reviews. The new regulation was actually proposed last year, but yesterday FTC commissioners voted unanimously to finalize it. And with that, businesses caught posting fake reviews can now face substantial fines. Each violation is punishable by up to around $52,000. Fake reviews are already technically illegal, but now there will be more government oversight. Most major e-commerce and review sites like Amazon and Yelp support the FTC's decision. Consumer advocates also praise the rule, saying online shoppers everywhere will now be able to feel more confident about their purchases. The new rule will start being enforced in a couple of months. Elon Musk's company, xAI, released a new artificial intelligence image generator this week that allows users to post AI pictures to his other platform, X, formerly Twitter. And right away, many users noticed there appears to be few limits on what kinds of images it lets them create, especially compared to AI competitors. For example, images of politicians doing drugs and holding weapons have been shared on the platform. That has some people worried about AI's impact in a presidential election year. Most of the images are pretty easily identified as having been computer-generated, but some do pass for a real photo at first glance. So far, X and xAI have not answered questions about content limits. Though if you actually ask the chatbot itself whether it has guardrails, it will say it avoids creating images that are pornographic, excessively violent, and so on. For now, the new AI model is limited to Premium and Premium Plus users on X, but it will apparently become available to more people later this month. A mega deal brings together some of the biggest names in sweet and salty snacks. Mars, known for making candy like Snickers and Starburst, has acquired Kenova, the producer of Pringles and Cheez-Its. Kenova was created just last year as a spin-off of Kellogg's, which separated its cereals from its snacks. The deal is worth $36 billion, making it one of the largest mergers announced so far this year. It should close at the beginning of next year. That's assuming antitrust regulators don't have concerns about the acquisition. Representatives from the companies say they don't expect any issues. This week marks a comeback for a world-famous street artist whose identity is a secret, but whose art is worth millions. Banksy went on a 9-day creative binge, painting animals on walls all over London. The daily appearance of new animal pictures has sent art fans on frantic hunts through the city for the chance to be among the first to see the pieces. But a group that speaks on behalf of Banksy said the gorilla that showed up on a wall outside the London Zoo on Tuesday would be the final work in the series. In the past, Banksy has made explicitly political work, including art that appeared in conflict zones like the West Bank and Ukraine. But critics and fans alike were more perplexed by this recent project, which seems to depict just animals. Whether a cat stretching or pelicans eating fish have deeper meanings is still unclear. What's certain is that Banksy, as usual, got people talking. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Thing to Know Thursday. But first, I want to take a moment to talk about our sponsor, Shopify. I launched this podcast and the business behind it nearly 7 years ago at this point, and I've learned that running a growing business means getting the insights you need where you are. So if you want to start a business or you're already years in like me, Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Seriously, you can launch with it, and then no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take that business to the next level. No wonder Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify's the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. In fact, even as a customer, I often notice my favorite brands and companies using Shopify at checkout. And I so appreciate how easy the process is from that side as well. So it just continues to build trust with customers. And there's nothing that means more to me and this business than gaining and keeping listener and customer trust. So sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/newsworthy, all lowercase. So go to shopify.com/newsworthy right now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/newsworthy. Now back to Thing to Know Thursday. Thousands of immigrants are becoming new Americans every week. The federal government has been dealing with a backlog of citizenship applications. But lately, the New York Times reports requests have been processed at the fastest pace in a decade. According to the Times, 9 million green card holders are eligible for citizenship. And many of them are especially motivated to become citizens now, before the big election in November. Some Republicans have criticized the government's sudden change in pace, saying the Biden administration is changing the voter base in a critical election year. But Democrats point out that a processing backlog created during the Trump administration prevented people from voting in 2020, and now the government is just catching up. Whatever the motivations, the whole debate has been distorted online. To be clear, granting citizenship to legal permanent residents has long had broad bipartisan support. They have to pass a background check, health exam, interview, and civics test. The process does not apply to unauthorized immigrants or migrants or asylum seekers. Whether new citizens will have an impact on election outcomes remains to be seen, but it certainly adds another element to an already historic election cycle. All right, thank you so much for listening today, and to all of you who help spread the word about the newsworthy. We will catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.